Okay, so today I wanted to talk more about agents of chaos and these vigilantes and how they like to do things like they'll sit there and they'll pick on someone that they think has certain flaws or certain character flaws, how flaws that they deem as flaws, and they'll sit there and they'll do things. Well, they'll put you through different trials to try and make you think that just to try and develop your character. That's how they view it. But in reality, these people aren't developing your character. They're not making you stronger. They're not making you better. They're not doing anything like that. That's what they tell themselves in order to make themselves feel better for putting you through abuse. Um, but yeah, no, abuse isn't character development. That's not how this works. Um, and what they put you through isn't character development. It's character delayed delayment, if anything else. And that's exactly what your abuse did. All it did was delay or cause you to delay progress or regress in progress. Um, but um, but I wanted to get into that whole thing because a lot of the times, um, victims of narcissism or victims of gang stalking or victims of just any form of abuse, honestly, um, you'll find yourself in a situation where you are constantly being put through these unnecessary trials, like these trials that they really don't make sense. They don't necessarily align with who you are. They could be lessons that you've already learned in life, things like don't judge a book by its cover. Like you already know that. You already live your life that way. You That's already a part of who you are as an individual or person. Um but because you've picked up on their bullshit very quickly, and they can't wrap their head around how it is that you could quickly figure them out as quickly as you did, they'll sit there and think, oh, well, you must be jumping to assumptions. Well, if you're someone who's going to jump to assumptions, I want to teach how horrible it is to jump to, it's all this other bullshit um, that stalkers and harassers like to kind of just revert to because it just makes, once again, and I say this every video, it's really not about you. It's about them. It's about their inability to kind of, first of all, to stop trying to control another person or another human being. Like they have real issues with that. They just have just boundary issues. Some people have boundary issues in that they constantly allow people to overstep their boundaries. And then other people have boundary issues where they're constantly overstepping boundaries. And that's kind of what abusers are. They're the people that are constantly pushing boundaries. Um, that you put in place. I don't know what it is about them, but they just have an issue with respecting boundaries. Um, and uh, well, I'm not even going to explain that because yeah, you know what I mean by pushing boundaries. Um, but oftentimes something that happens when someone's abuse tactics are no longer working on you or they're no longer effective, your abuser will say things like, "Oh, you've grown," or "Oh, you're different now," or "Oh, you've gotten stronger." See, and they'll say these things, but in reality, you didn't get stronger. You didn't grow. You just are returning back to who you were before they dysregulated you. Abusers like to do this thing where they're constantly where they're just kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They just kind of due to the projections that they've placed on who you are as a person and things like that, um they didn't allow themselves to first of all get a full picture of who you are. Um and even if they did, they still what's what I'm looking for? Honestly, this the type of abuse that I talk about is about strangers abusing strangers because that's what I went through. I went through having complete strangers trying to think that they um think that they had my person, think that they are a psychotherapist who had the range or who had the intellectual prowess or you know the the skills in order to diagnose me with whatever it is that they wanted to. when in reality they didn't at all. But so as someone who's dealt with stranger abuse, this is kind of what I special or this is what I'm talking about. And if you're someone who's a victim of narcissistic abuse or gang stalking by someone other than a romantic partner, then you understand. Then this is what this kind of whole channel is founded upon. But so yeah, your abusers are going to constantly be doing things like putting you into situations that they think are building your character, but they're really not. All they're doing is just once again tearing you down or making you weaker or just frustrating you for no reason at all. None of what they do is for character development or character building. You're more than likely, if you're targeted by gang stalking, you're more than likely a pretty whole person already as it is, or you were just developing at a natural pace. But for your abusers and for people who like to push boundaries, the natural pace of things is never quick enough for them. They have to rush you to whatever level of development that they want you at. If you're 21 years old, why are you not already like this and like that? And like if you're 16, why are you not already like they're just really and oftentimes, if you're someone who's a victim of something like gang stalking, your abusers are typically older than you. Like for me, mine were a whole bunch of old, crusty, wrinkly white people and a lot of black males. Like these are just and don't get me started on the women. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like a lot of them are just older than me, much older than me. Um, and for a lot of older people, not only do they not have lives, so so being preoccupied with what younger people are doing is just it's just what they do because they just don't have anything going on in their life really. Um, and then not only just that part, but also the part where they have those kind of like when you were in school and those little mean girls were all at the table discussing this and that person and all that. Those people grow up, not actually grow up as in like mentally grow up, but they physically grow up. And they find other groups of people to like just kind of like gossip and talk shit with and all this other stuff, and they become those community elders. They become that old lady that you see, down the street. They just become all those people. These people, they never grow up, but they grow up. you know who they are doesn't change, but their physical appearance changes. um and if you're a target of gang stalking, you're more than likely being targeted by a whole bunch of old crones or raggedy ass old men with dust for sperm that are that are yeah, they just don't have lives, and so that they're preoccupied with what you're doing in your life. um but yeah, that's just that on that. But I just really wanted to emphasize and bring home that point about how you about just how it's just a part of the abuser's playbook. They dysregulate you. They will do things to cause problems in your life, and then once you start finding solutions to the problems they created, then it's, see, look at what we did. Look at her development. Look at how we helped. No, no, no. They didn't help you at all. They weren't trying to help you one bit at all. They were trying to play with your life. They were trying to dysregulate you. They were trying to throw you off. They were trying to stop you. They were trying to do everything in their power to slow you down. They weren't doing anything to help you at all. You helped yourself. And it kind of goes back to that one quote about how, your abuse didn't make you stronger. You were just already strong to begin with. Your abuses didn't make you a better person. You were a better person to begin with. They just they just couldn't see that. They just didn't care to see that. They just um yeah, they're just full of shit. You yeah, you just keep going on and you keep doing what you do. Um because your abusers, they just, yeah, they have no claim to the new and improved version of you. They have no claim to the like they don't even know you. They really don't even know you. Like in my instance, these people, like, they literally saw me from a snap. Like I remember one of my abusers, this guy named Mike. He has a wife named Terry. She works at USC and things like that. And I remember I had gotten his job or whatever. And then he calls and he's like, look at you, started from home beginnings and now you got a job. And it's like, bro, I was living in California for almost a decade, living with my aunt who was doing pretty well for herself. Like I haven't been part of the struggle in I don't know how long. Like but he's sitting here talking to me like like I just got out the ghetto or some shit. And it's like, bro, are you fucking kidding me? I've been out of the ghetto since I was a fucking since 14. Like shut the fuck up, man. You don't and but that's the thing about your abusers. They really don't have a clear or a proper perspective of you. They only have this distorted version of you. Um, and quite frankly, they need to be minding their own business. But that's the thing about abusers. Once again, they don't have a respect for boundaries. So something like minding their own business, that just doesn't register with them. They don't know how to mind their own business. They don't know how to just live their life. They don't know how to. They don't have main character energy. Let's put it like that. Abusers lack the ability to just kind of live their life. Like they don't know how to just be like, and they see you just being, just existing, just enjoying your existence, and that just kind of throws them off. They're like, how could someone be so okay with themselves? Like how could someone just be okay in their own little world like that? And that's because they just lack that they just lack that sense of identity, that sense of their own sense of self, their own sense of self acceptance, and things like that. This is why they're constantly going out of their way. Like I said, if you're a victim of a gang stalker or anything like that, you will know narcissistic abuse too, because a part of it is gaslighting. They're constantly putting you through all these different social scenarios and tests. They'll constantly be making up all these different situations that aren't actually random, but and they do such a bad job at it too. That's another thing. Oh my God. Don't be a self aware person, because if you are like sitting here and going through this shit, you just sit there and think to yourself, like, oh my God, like you're so dumb. Like, do you really think I'm this stupid? Do you really think I wouldn't think that you were the person doing XYZ? Do you really think I wouldn't? Like, that's just kind of what the last few years of my life have been like. And at this point, I'm kind of just like they want to be sloppy, or they want to, make it very clear what they're trying to do. Because the idea that people are as stupid as they are, like I just can't accept that anyone's as stupid as how my gang stalkers are. Like, I just can't accept that anyone is that stupid. But I could be wrong. I really could be wrong. But one thing I can't accept, especially now that I've seen it, is just how broken so many people are. Like they're just broken to the point where they try to break others, and they view their dysfunction as the norm. Like, those people that are constantly like, I'm just being real. No, you're not being real. You're being rude. Or I'm just, being myself. You're not being yourself. You're being dysregulated. Like, no healthy person, I should say, healthy individual acts as many of these gang stalkers do, or as many of your abusers do, even if they're not gang stalkers, just abusers in general. They're very or just dysregulated people in general, because you don't have to be abusive to be dysregulated. Sometimes being dysregulated looks like, popping off at the mouth when you don't really need to, or just being agitated. Like, you don't have to be abusive. Being agitated isn't being abusive. Being dysregulated isn't being abusive. It's just being agitated or dysregulated. But abusers are typically agitated and dysregulated. So you don't have to be an abuser to be agitated or dysregulated, but abusers are agitated and dysregulated. They're not in a normal healthy state. Because normal, healthy, happy humans just don't do what they do. They just really don't. It's not synonymous. It just isn't. But But I really wanted to just talk about that because it's just something that I remembered. Because seriously, this is seriously something people will try to do. Like they will seriously try to uh, throw you off, do all this stuff, and uh, and then when you finally get to a place where you're just back to normal, then it's like, oh, you've grown, or oh, you've this, and it's just like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Like, I haven't grown. I'm just back to normal. I haven't, developed. I'm just back to me. I'm getting back to a me. Like they just try to lay so much claim on your character or who you are as a person or any of the better parts of you, and it's just like they play. And I just want to really bring this home is that they have played no part in you know you being the better version of yourself or you going back to who you were or things like that. They really haven't done that at all. um I remember one time, well, not one time, but just not too recently, I was talking to my ex, and and he was saying something along the lines of, or I was talking to him about my business ideas, which I had been doing since I met him. But something he said was like, "Oh, you've grown." Because instead of wanting him to, buy something, I don't know, something silly for us, I was like, "Yo, if you want to spend money on me, like I have a business that I'm trying to get up off the ground. If you want to, But he didn't want to do that. But he made this mention to me being you haven't grown or something like that, and I'm just like, it just reminds me of the fact that a lot of times when people meet you, they don't really know your history. Like I have, at 18, I decided not to go to college and instead went into the startup world because at 18 years old, I realized I didn't want to be an academic. I wanted to go into business. Like this isn't something that's new to me. This isn't something that you know, isn't something that I just, woke up one day and, after experiencing this X, Y, and Z with these other people, I suddenly, decided, hey, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like, no, this is what I've been trying to do for almost a decade now. And I actually did make attempts at it multiple times, but they're just, failures happen. But the sooner you fail, the sooner you succeed. So that's how I see it. And that's another thing. You see, as someone who I am a very what's the word I'm looking for? Persistent or basically eh, failure means nothing to me. It really doesn't. When I fail at something, it's just oh well, time to try again or try another way. Like I really don't. Failure just doesn't register with me. It just really doesn't. I'm very persistent when it comes to my goals. I'm very yeah, I'm just persistent when it comes to achieving my goals. Like I've literally had the same few goals. I just rotate them. But yeah, I've had the same few goals for the past decade, almost a decade now. Um, and uh, and yeah, it's just a lot of the times when you are healing from abuse, you'll find yourself going back to the way that you were before, the abuse started and before you became dysregulated. And your abusers will do things like trying to lay claim on this new version of you, but it's really not a new version of you. It's an old version of you that they just refused to see or that they weren't aware of because they had made up this version of you in your mind that was never you to begin with. Um, and as one of the Instagram quotes go, you are not responsible for the versions of yourself that other people make up in their minds. Um, I know I brought this up last week, but I wanted to bring it up again. When this woman was talking about on YouTube, she was talking about how this person that she was working with and that she had a falling out with, how this person, they thought that we were closer friends than we were, and then when I corrected them on that, or when they realized that they weren't, then they got mad and that made them a narcissist. And I'm just like, lady, calm down. Like just because the idea of you that this person had in their head doesn't fit who you are, it doesn't mean that this person is just like, a fucking psychopath. Like it's okay. Like I don't know. But that's the thing about not even just abusers, but people in general. It's like people have really lost the ability to kind of just become aware of the fact that you cannot mesh with someone or someone's personality, or you cannot even like someone and they can still just be a regular person. Like you don't have to like everyone. It's okay. And if you don't like someone, that doesn't make them yeah, a monster. Like, but once again, it just goes back to that whole people just never growing up. People just never I remember when I was 20 years old, I was in Peru. I was 20 years old in Peru, and I was with my cousin. And now this girl, she is from a completely, like, her life has been completely night and day difference from mine. First of all, she was an only child for a long time. I am the youngest of like multiple kids. I don't know what it's like to be an only child. I don't know what it's like to be the firstborn. I don't know what it's like to, no, no, no. I am the last. I got all the hand me downs. I had to share everything I ever owned. I've had to, you know, every a communal style of living. Like everything was very, nothing was really my own. Everything was shared. Everything was, yeah, just a big potluck. Um, and I rarely had new things. For the most part, everything I ever had, someone else had it before me. I've never really had new stuff. Um, but I bring all that up to say this is someone, and she was someone who all her life, or for majority of her life, she was the first and the oldest because she wound up having a little brother later on. But she wasn't the. She also had an older brother, but he was gone by the time she was like he was much much older. Um, so yeah, she effectively grew up as an only child, pretty much. But but yeah, so ultimately this is a girl who was a spoiled she was a spoiled brat. She um she was incredibly inconsiderate and rude. She she almost got us she put our lives in danger in multiple occasions. She was just doing all this shit, this crazy extra shit. And I was just like, man, this girl is a lot to deal with. Um But you know what? She's just different from me. Look, I don't hate her and I don't like her. She's just different. And that was my perspective as a 20 fucking year old kid. Like now I'm 25, but the fact that at 20 years old that I had the wisdom or I had the foresight to just be able to be like, I don't like this person, but I also don't have to hate them. They're just different and they've just had a different life experience than me and I don't want to like they can be whoever the fuck like you're just fine as you are. I just don't want no part of it. You know? And it's crazy like it's just when I sit there and I compare 20-year-old me to my um 26-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 67-year-old abusers at the time, it's just it always baffles me because I'm just like you really start off at a much more mature and level-headed and uh normally that's what abusers go for. They go for people that are pretty level, like they go for um normal people with a few weaknesses. Either you come from a weak community or you come from a weak family or maybe you have weak boundaries or things like that. That's what they go for. But at the end of the day, who you are as a person really isn't it's not an issue. It's a non-factor. Um but then they'll put you through all this abuse. They'll put you through all these situations and things like that, thinking that they're making you stronger. And then when you start going back to who you were before, this pretty chill person who was actually more mature than them, your abusers, then they try to once again that whole thinking that they somehow it's like what's the word I'm looking for? This is one quote where it talks about how if you keep telling a lie long enough, people start to believe it. Or if you keep bullshitting people long enough, at some point in time, they'll just kind of, the truth won't matter anymore. All that matters is the fact that, well, the bullshit is here now. So what are we going to do? That's what your abusers try to do. What they try to do is they try to hijack your life for so long and they try to put you through so much shit for so long that you almost forget what the truth is, that you almost forget who you are, and that you almost forget what reality is. And it's really important that you, like, something that's once again helped me to stay sane throughout all the abuse that I've had to endure. Um, and especially when it comes to gosh, what is it I'm about to say? Oh man, Lost my train of thought for a bit. But gosh, kind of like forgetting about the truth and how people will just put you through. Oh yeah, in my previous videos, whenever I'm talking, I always bring up that point about how some people have said that they've gone through this abuse for 40 something years, and I'm always shocked to hear that or hear how long people have been dealing with certain things, or how long it took them for them to reach certain realizations. Because I'm like, if you just stay true to reality, and stay true to the facts, eventually, like, it's going to have to integrate. Like, the truth can't be like, the only way people can really, really, like, actually really gaslight you is if if you kind of if you just don't have that strong of a relationship with yourself for the truth. My abusers have been they're still trying to gaslight me to this day. Like, right now, as I speak, like, this is an ongoing thing. But it's just, that you reach certain levels of development or milestones, and I've reached certain levels of acceptance with things. But one thing my abusers can never do is distort my perception of reality. Like, they're not gonna it's just not gonna happen. In fact, I even think that whole trip to Peru was a planned thing that they did in order to, like, this whole thing was planned out. It was definitely planned. um they were trying to fuck with me from before I was even aware of it. But yeah. So, point I'm making is that as long as you have a strong grasp on reality, as long as you should have a strong grasp on the truth and a strong grasp of who you are, a strong core, I really recommend, like, when I was a kid, when I was in high school and things like that, I did a lot of reading of about Buddhism. I did a lot on Stoicism and Epicureanism. Like, I always talk about those three things. Those are the three main philosophies that kind of shaped me and shaped my character and things like that. Um, but with that being said, uh, yeah, if you just have a strong core, it's not to say that gaslighting won't have an effect on you. It's just it won't destroy you, because when someone's trying to gaslight you, when someone's trying to put you through a perpetual cycle of years and years and years of gaslighting and years of like street theater, or years and years and years of just all this bullshit, like, when you're constantly trying to just rack your mind with just so much bullshit. And they do it for years on end, like, once again, they're trying to make the new normal. They want to impose their reality as your new normal, as your reality. They want to impose their view of you as you. They want you to adopt however it is that they view you. That's how you should view yourself. They want you to adopt whatever views and perspectives that they have on you and your life and life in general. They want to impose that on you. Um, gosh, like, something that one of my gang stalkers and abusers were constantly trying to impose on me is this whole you need to have a growth mindset. And it's like, bitch, I've had a growth mindset my entire life. Like, and it just gets exhausting because, once again, the reason why I bring up the whole savior complex in the sense with this whole thing is because my gang stalkers and my abusers have been people that they've just kind of that it's almost as if they kind of want to be my saviors in a weird way. And it's so weird saying that, because it's like someone who will put you through so many different levels of abuse. They can't, you really. I don't like to mix the idea of love with abuse. I don't like to mix the idea of growth with abuse. Like, people who love you don't really do these type of things. People who care about you don't actually do these type of things. This isn't love. Abuse isn't love. Abuse isn't care. Putting you through unnecessary bullshit. None of that is love. It's not even tough love. This isn't tough love. It's not. It's textbook. It's textbook abuse. It's textbook narcissism. It's textbook fucking psychopathy, if you will. Um, None of this stuff is love. None of it's growth. None of it's for your benefit. They just like to beat that down your neck or down your throat once again because, like I said in earlier videos, when people can convince you to, it's kind of like locking you in a shame, or it's getting you to blame yourself. And if they can get you to blame yourself, then they don't, they can pretty much do anything to you and you'll blame yourself for what's happening. I remember I was talking in another previous video about how I was at a friend's house one time as a kid, and she would hit her little sister. And every time she hit her little sister, she would ask her little sister, "Who hit her? Who hit you?" And the little sister would point to me, the person that didn't touch her at all. And I'm like, it's crazy to me how this little girl is seeing herself be slapped by her big sister. And whenever her big sister asks her who hit you, the little girl points to the person that didn't even raise a hand. But that's how your gang stalkers want you to be. They want to inflict damage and pain on you, and then they want you to point to someone else for the damage and pain. They want you to point to someone else. They want you to point to any and everyone but them. Um, and this is just how they like to kind of like, fuck up your life and things like that. Like this is all a part of yeah, it's just all a part of what they do. Um, because they're just sick like that. And once again, these people are individuals with no real lives. My friend who was doing that, she was bored out of her fucking mind. She was a girl who pretty much sat inside all day long, didn't really do anything. I was kind of like one of her only friends in that area because, first of all, where we lived, it was so male dominated. Like there were so many sons, there weren't that many little girls to play with. Um, but yeah, this was a girl that was bored out of her fucking mind. And she realized one day, hey, if I hit my little sister and I put someone else, she won't blame me. Like when people start doing shit like that, you know that's when people start like it never it was just in my mind. I was like, what, how did she even figure this out? Like what even drove her to do that to her little sister? I kind of laugh about it now, but when you really think about it, that takes someone being bored. Like that's, when they say like an idle mind is the devil's playground, that's what they kind of mean. When people are bored, they like to get into shit. And this is what your gang stalkers are. Your gang stalkers are people with no lives. They're bored as hell. They're boring as hell. I'm sorry. The only times people are ever actually interested in the lives of others is when they don't have a life themselves. I will tell you, I love so many artists. Kid Cudi is one of my favorite artists. I listen to that guy's music all the fucking time. Do you think I know anything about this guy's personal life? No. You want to know why? Because I don't give a fuck. Like I don't know who Scott Mescudi is. I know who Kid Cudi is. I like Kid Cudi, but I don't like Scott Mescudi. I don't know Scott Mescudi. Like I don't know this dude. I don't care. Like I don't give a fuck about his life. I don't give a fuck about his family. He ain't paying my bills. I'm paying his bills. Like at the end of the day, like I got a life to live. I appreciate the music, I appreciate the art, but I got a life I need to live. Like I got bills I gotta pay, I got shit I gotta do. Like I'm not about to sit up here and look at a documentary on anyone's life. Like I just don't care. Um Now, of course, I'm not saying that if you're looking at documentaries of people that means that you automatically don't have a life. But what I'm saying is that people that are constantly the reason the Kardashians are famous is because there's a lot of bored people that don't have shit going on in their lives. The reasons people like uh the reason that the reason celebrity gossip exists is because of bored people. Like that's honestly what it comes down to. Being a celebrity would go back to being just about their performances or just about the music they provide or just about the service they provide if it wasn't if if we lived in healthier times and things like that. But no, being, obsessed with the life of someone else, doing all that other shit, like that's just a sign of sheer boredom. Um and it's a sign of just not really having much going on up there. Like they don't have too many thoughts, they don't have too many like it's just boredom. It's boredom, boredom, boredom. um to quote Tyler the Creator, boredom, boredom, boredom. Like it's just yeah, that's just what's going on with that. Um Because, yeah, another thing I noticed about a lot of these victims, whenever I join these forums or these groups, whenever I'm talking to people, and even with myself at one point in time, especially before when my abusers were super anonymous, because a lot, like my abuse developed. At first, it was a bunch of anonymous people, but then I started, to really see their faces, and not only their faces, but knowing about their lives and things like that. And I was just like, yeah, no, these people are literally nobodies. But and honestly, it doesn't matter how much success or how many followers or how much money someone has. If at the end of the day someone gets to the point where they want to sit there and stalk and harass somebody, just for the sake of doing it, at that point, at that very moment, someone loses any type of, like, at that moment you lose any credibility for being a cool person anymore. Like, you just, yeah, no, you're a loser at that point. You're just like those kids in school who just, were constantly disrupting, who were constantly being, assholes just because um they wanted attention. They didn't get enough attention at home. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a just something I wanted to get into. Your abusers will do things like dysregulating you, throwing you off, and all this other shit. And then once you finally get, to a place where their bullshit no longer phases you or stuff like that, they'll do things like trying to say, "Oh, you've grown, or you've done this, or blah blah blah." And it's like, bitch, I haven't grown. I'm just back to me. And I actually have an experience from my own life with that. Once again, with this ex I was talking to, um, we had a bit of a, like, just things were just going back and forth between us. He would do some shit that was foul. I would do some shit that was foul. Honestly, if you ask him, he would think that I was the boogeyman. But in reality, I think we both were being just our lesser selves to each other. And by lesser selves, I mean, people like to sit there and think that you can't. He was just constantly crossing my boundaries no matter what. um love bombing, or doing things that looked like they were sweet, but in reality they put me in really awkward situations, or they put me in really uncomfortable situations, or they made me feel uncomfortable, or all these other things. But point I was going with that is he's at a place right now where he's a lot less codependent. He's at a place right now where he's a lot less love bomby or things like that. He's fallen way on the other side of the pendulum. Like, at this point right now, he's kind of at a place where he's like, I don't know what it is with him, but he's like all of a, I'll either, give something, 1000% or 0%. That's the type of person he is. Well, the type of person he is with me. Um, and and me, I don't really fuck with the whole codependent thing. I don't really do that. But I do recognize that, sometimes people, they just like, I've just always been that person who recognizes that people can have complex emotions. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect. No one has to be perfect. It's okay. Um, it's just what you do when it's just how you handle your imperfections that matters, you know. And yeah, he's reached a place where he's not as codependent or weird with me anymore. And sometimes I found myself saying, "Oh, he's grown," but no, I don't think he's grown. Actually, I think what happened is he's just being normal now. He's being regular now, um, and and it's great. Um, but but yeah, I'm just bringing up that example because, sometimes in our own personal lives, just, a lot of the times when someone is doing something where they're when someone's doing something that seems really out of character, not even out of character, but that just seems really odd, and then they stop doing that odd thing, chances are they were doing that odd thing because something, like, when people act odd, it's coming from a place. And when people stop acting odd, it's typically a marker or a sign that whatever brought them to that oddness has now left. It's kind of like if someone has a splinter in their foot, they're gonna hop around, like ow, ow, ow. And if you just happen to come across someone hopping around going, ow, 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 it would be ridiculous for you to think that that person just normally all the time hops around saying, ow, ow, ow. Like, no. When we see someone doing something weird, like hopping around on one foot, we go, huh, something must be wrong with their other foot. But whenever we see people who are behaving in weird ways, like being just really, this or that, rarely do we ever think to ourselves, oh, something must be causing them to do this and that. And oh my God, and rarely do we think that we're the ones causing people to do those odd things. Um, but yeah, no. And then when, for someone to stop hopping around on one foot, that would be them returning back to normal. And it's the same thing with people stopping, weird behavior. They're finally returning back to a normal. They're not necessarily evolving. They haven't changed. You no longer have that splinter in your foot. And if you're someone who's had to deal with so much surveillance and things like that, if you're someone who's had to deal with constantly being on watch, constantly being harassed, constantly being provoked, constantly being, put in a situation after situation, scenario after scenario, and all this other shit, you've developed behaviors that that might have not have been the healthiest. You've developed behaviors that might not have been the, this or that, or and all these other things. And it's going to take years to get to a point where you are back to any form of normal. Or some things might not ever get back to normal. Like for me, like being under surveillance, that's killed my creativity. Like I will never be as creative or as ambitious as I once was, because there's just something about constantly being or having, my shit constantly hacked or spoofed or sim swapped, or all this other shit that just kind of kills creativity. It kills your ability to just connect on certain levels and things like that. But at the end of the day though, like at the end of the day, you move on though. You find new normals, you find new yeah, just new regulars and things like that. And your abusers will sit there and once again try thinking that they some of them will be like, oh fuck, like we wanted her to crash and burn, but now she's back to normal. And they'll hate that so much, and they'll try to dysregulate you to get you back to that dysregulated place. But the thing about abusers is they're like broken records. They constantly try the same old tricks over and over and over again, and they don't really know how to evolve. All they know how to do is pick new victims. And like the saying goes, when someone abuses you, you're going to heal, you're going to move on, and you're going to be better, but they're going to be stuck as that same person, that same ain't shit ass person. And then that's one of the beauties about breaking free from abuse or getting away from abusive people. But the thing is, because they stay the same, they have to keep finding new victims. Abusers they rarely evolve. They don't change, they don't evolve or anything like that. So yeah, they have to keep looking for new hosts. They have to keep looking for new victims. And yeah, that's just kind of the it on that. You will grow, you will get stronger, you will live your life, you will find new things that make you happy. You're gonna be just fine, is what I'm really trying to say. You'll be just fine. But your abusers, they won't. They really won't. And that's unfortunate. I always wish healing on people, because if someone heals, then they're not going to sit there and try hurting other people. But the thing about but it's just some people, they never, once again, it just goes back to that topic of growing up. Some people just really never grow up. They never do the work. They never say to themselves, yeah, maybe I should stop trying to do XYZ. Maybe I should. They just never do. It never crosses their mind. They don't have that they have it, but they just choose not to exercise that level of mental they just don't choose to access those levels of consciousness. And I call it a choice because it's definitely a choice. Um, but but yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Just remember that any growth that you go through, it's not, your abusers play no role in your growth. They only play a role in trying to delay you, or trying to break you down, or trying to slow your roll. They don't play a role in your growth though. Abuse doesn't build character. Struggle builds character, but abuse isn't struggle. Abuse is abuse. And that's something that a lot of people just really don't understand. Um, Abuse is abuse. It's not a struggle. It's not character building. It's not anything like that. Abuse is abuse is abuse. Harassment is harassment is harassment. These things are all abuse. They're not character building in any way, shape, or form. And if you've ever gotten over or gotten through abuse, it's because of who you are, and it's because you're an amazing person. It's not because your abusers have your best interests at heart, or because they're looking out for you in any way, shape, or form. Your abusers are just sick people. And if you're a black woman, you're probably just sick as fuck white people. Or you're probably just, sick as fuck black men. You're probably just sick as fuck people, you know. Um, so yeah, just keep on keeping on.